no matter what path you choose to walk, and whether you believe or not, you can be certain that a fairy is watching.
Hello, fairy finders and fairy seekers. Welcome to FaerieQuest and another episode of Real Fairies in Real Photos. Today, I'm going to show you some modern-day fairy photos from Cottingly Beck, the famous place where the Cottingly fairy hoax photos were taken. I regret that I did not take these photos myself, as I don't believe I will ever actually make it to England. Thankfully, there are those who have visited this place and have shared their visit. The photos you will see here were snipped from one wonderful video. The link is in the description box below. Take a look. This gentleman did a fantastic, peaceful filming of this famous place. Now, before moving on to the photos, let me know in the comments if you would like me to read Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's book to you in a series of videos, so you might understand his reasoning concerning the original Cottingly fairy photos. Also, please don't forget my other channel, FaerieQuest Oracles, if you enjoy card readings. The link is in the description box below. Oh, and please remember to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, that's enough yapping from me. Let's get to the photos now. This is the first of 8 photos that I have to show you. Out of these 8 photos, we have 15 fairies. The original snipped photo, like this first one, will be seen in full with no markings before you see the fairies that I found in them. So, now that you've seen this first snipped photo, let's see where the fairies are. As we know, these fairies are brilliant at hiding in plain sight. I believe this one was actually walking along the branch, planning on getting to the other side, when the photographer came along and she swung herself down to blend into the leaves, the dried leaves that were hanging there. We can see her face in profile, we see her hair, and we see her hair in the back that is up in a very unique looking ponytail. We can also see her arm that is kind of bent back, like she's holding herself up against something. And I've pointed out the elbow and all the way down to her legs. She almost looks like she's wearing a raincoat because she has donned what looks like a dried leaf. I don't believe it is, because I think it's just their blending ability. But amazing, right? This fairy has blended himself into the shadow and used the tree and some of the tree roots to blend with. So he is dark, but we definitely can see his head. He has hair. We can see his nose. And again, we are seeing in profile, he's facing the previous fairy. We can also make out a body to some degree. It's much denser. And also down to his legs and his feet. He has one hand that appears to be resting on his knee, and we can actually see fingers or knuckles, one of the two. I can't tell for sure. Here is photo number 2, and I'm sure if you look closely, you will see the fairy that I am about to point out to you. If you were looking underneath this root in this little hole, you were correct. We see the ear on this fairy, we see the face, the eyes are a bit on the warped side, the face is a little warped out of position, but again, he's either forming himself or unforming himself, trying to blend after seeing the photographer. Photo number 3, a wall, flowers, and foliage, but never take anything for granted, because you never know where these fairies are going to hide. What a clever little fairy. This could almost be mistaken for like a mushroom, right in the middle of the foliage and the flowers, but you can easily see that what looks like a mushroom is the hat, and we can see his ear, we can see both eyes, the nose, and his mouth. So this little fairy was pretty brilliant too. This is one of the reasons that I make sure I enlarge my photos to 200%. It gives me the opportunity to really look closely at the flowers. And I think what we have here is a baby fairy. We can see the hat, we can see the eyes very clearly, and the little body as it stretches like a flower or on the flower petal perhaps. And it almost looks like there's maybe a bottle in front of this little one's face. I'm going to say she, being it appears she's dressed in pink. And how adorable is this? Here we have photo number 4. And if you take a moment to look at this photo, you might actually see some things that you're not really sure of and some things that look a little bit strange. See if you can pick anything out before you move ahead in the video. I'm going to guess that your eyes went straight for this fairy. Mine did, I know that, when I was looking at the snipped photo, and enlarged even, and before I enlarged it too. These fairies have a tendency to morph themselves into something, and this one I think was trying to change into a rock so that it would not be as easily seen, but it looks kind of like a gorilla in a way. We can see an ear, we can see the eyes that are very close together like a gorilla, and the body shape is very much like a gorilla. I find this very interesting. What do you think? Not too far behind the gorilla is a shadow figure shaped within the foliage that appears to be perhaps a man or the famous Sasquatch that has blended itself into the foliage around it. This one seemed to have enough time to make sure it blended in, and normally it would not be seen. But blowing up the photos makes a big difference, and we can see the top of his head, we can see eyes and eyebrows, and we can even see part of the body. Here we have a third fairy in this photo, and this fairy is extremely well dressed. It might be a little bit difficult for you to focus on it, but stand back a little bit, look at it for a moment, look away. She's wearing a hat, we can see hair, we can see 2 eyes, and she has her head turned so that she's looking over her shoulder. And we can see an arm, we can see the long gray dress, and we can even see the feet. And this dress is kind of an old time dress where it comes down to right above the ankles, and she might even have pantaloons on underneath. But she's a very well dressed fairy and out in the middle of nowhere. Rivers and creeks seem to be a wonderful place to photograph fairies. This was no exception, and since it's Cottingly Beck, we already had the idea that fairies might be here, even though the Cottingly Fairies was a hoax. Wherever there's foliage, wherever there's nature, chances are there's fairies. This one was a bit off in the distance of the original snipped photo you just saw, but again, making the photos 200% and going through them with a fine-tooth comb, it is amazing what you can find. And this one took on the dark form of the tree, but we can see his hat, we can see his face. He's kind of looking down at the ground, but he's in profile. He's wearing a coat. We can see his shoulder quite formed, and we see that the coat appears to be almost down to the knees, and we can see his feet, maybe even his ankles. I noticed this fairy mostly due to the coloring of her dress or outfit, but when you follow something like that, when you see something a little bit out of the ordinary, normally there is a fairy attached to it. And in this one, we can see she's on a rock, close to the water, and we can see she has blonde hair. We can see her face with both eyes. The features aren't super clear. We can see both arms, one with the elbow bent, the other one straight, and we also see her body. We can't make out her feet for sure, and I can't really tell if she's wearing a dress or pants, but there she is. If it hadn't been for the color of her outfit, I probably would have missed her. We're at photo number 6 already, and as you can see on the screen, this is an absolutely gorgeous place. And if you were a fairy, wouldn't you want to live here? I was only able to spot one fairy in this snipping of the video, and it was a very big picture of a fairy. When enlarged, it's quite blurry, but you can see where I've put the outline on the photograph up above, looking around the tree. And if you look to the photo on the right, I've labeled as well as I can. This little one kind of reminds me of like a court jester almost. That's kind of what the hat looks like to me. And I'm guessing that he's either wearing sunglasses or he has an eye patch. But we can see the nose, we can see the cheekbones, and its little mouth is like in an O, like it's quite shocked at having been captured on camera by the photographer who took this video. Of course, the photographer probably didn't notice, but this little fairy would not have known that. But it's been noticed now. Photo number 7 here. Take a look at this one, pause the video if you need to, and see if you can see the fairies that I will be showing you from this photo. A couple of them stick out pretty well. Chances are you saw this one due to the color that stood out in the original photograph. We can see an ear, we can see both eyes, the nose, which is a little bit pointed, and the chin with the mouth, also the hand and arm. And if you look closely, you can see how the body is molded into the rock. Again, perfect blenders. It's just amazing how good they are at it. This fairy is amazing. I hope that you can see she's black and white in comparison to the things around her. Again, something to pay attention to. And as you can see, she's very close to the fairy that I just showed you. But this one has on kind of like a wizarding hat. We can see her face in profile. She has her hair and her eyes, her nose, her mouth. She's a little bit chunky, and she's holding a cup, it looks like, out in front of her. We can't really see a whole lot of the rest of her body. It's almost as though she has formed herself out of the water, which isn't unusual either, but I would swear that she's perhaps wearing glasses like a grandmother. Anyway, phenomenal. This one is one of the best photos from this location. Now, if we were watching some kind of show and we saw an image of a being like this, the first thing that we would probably think is, there's the villain. This kind of has a creep factor to it, and maybe it's the sweetest fairy that you would ever know. However, we can definitely see very large eyes, and the killer of it is the teeth. We can see individual teeth here. We can see an ear, no hair the way that it looks, but it almost looks like this one has formed himself or morphed himself into the log. So this is what we're seeing coming out. Very interesting fairy this one is. Here we are at photo number 8. And again, like before, pause the video and see if you can find the fairy in this picture. She stands out pretty well, And as a hint, think of water. Well, here she is, and she has formed herself out of the water. I've put the rectangle box around her in the larger picture and shown you on the right-hand side more of her. We can easily see her blonde hair, her eyes, her nose, her mouth, her chin, and she has one arm here that we can see is bent and moving forward, and her hand. And I do believe that the other arm is there as well. I did not label it, but you can see it stretched out and it's kind of outlined rather than being white like the water. But if you look closely too, it is possible that she maybe has wings, but I'm not positive on that. Look on the larger picture there and see the shape of the wing coming off of her back. Okay, that's it for this video. And I do believe that there are fairies at Cottingly Beck as these photographs show. Don't forget to check out the photographer's video, which is in the description box below, that these pictures came from. And also, if you have a location that you would like to see if there's fairies, let me know if there's a video that I can take a look at. If the video is of good enough quality, we might actually be able to do another video kind of like this, different location. Okay, that's it everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.